one of the things I have been looking at is the economic impact of the conflict. There are various broad figures out there, but I haven't found what may be considered a definitive figure. Are you not there yet, or is it still evolving, or how long will that take?
Philosophically, what is it that we want to calculate? What is the basis that you're taking? If you take a replacement value of the asset, that's one approach. We had buildings, residential, administrative, roads, power stations, you name it. I mean, these were cities and villages with thriving population. Would they be outdated and amortized over the 30 years period? Probably some part of these assets. Some part of these assets, probably they will go even more up in the value. When it comes to monuments, can you really put a price? Can you put a dollar figure on a monument, historical monument that has been destroyed or neglected or completely lost? So one way, therefore, to look at it, as I say, is replacement value, upgrade or reconstruction value, and yes, every year we spend a significant amount of funds.
Are you saying it's important to reach a figure? So, for example, there was a conference in, I think it was South Africa, where they came up with 888 billion for slavery. So it did take them a long time, 100 years. It did take them some time to come up with a figure. One day, is Azerbaijan going to say, that's the figure?
My approach to this is that we have a figure which is a combination of natural energy riches that were looted over the years. There was illegal exploration of gold, copper, natural materials, silver, you name it. There were a lot of herbicide and ecocide type of violations and destructions. There is a figure that can be put on it. There is a development cost, or actual lack of it. Do you put over these 25, 30 years? State carried the financial burden of placing the refugees and internally displaced persons, paying them subsidies, meals, providing for free utilities. Do you also put that figure? So I think what I'm trying to say is that two things. One is it's about methodology that you want to use and the purpose. If it's for a claim, if you go to an international court and seeking the compensation, that's one thing. If you put a developmental cost of it, I think it's another. If you take a broader view, I think a lot of things, although I'm a minister of economy, but I think that a lot of things cannot be assigned economic value to. And the most obvious one of them is lives, broken families, lost opportunities. That's what I'm trying to say. But overall, yes, the short answer, just to give a glimpse now in terms of numbers, we have calculated and we have done a methodology for direct losses. We have done a methodology for looting and exploiting the mineral resources. We have numbers for the extra cost which state and society bear on these internal displaced persons and refugees living. In the last 3 years, we have invested over $10 billion only on infrastructure repair works, those residential buildings that were restored, on the urban planning. There is a huge bill to be picked up on demining. We can only estimate, but because the maps are not there, you cannot really know with a degree of precision. So there will always be certain assumptions to be made. But I think we are certainly talking within tens of billions of dollars magnitudes, comparing to the size of the territory, size of the GDP, time over which this has taken place.
The cost is the human capital, very much so. You have an interesting perspective because you were in education and you looked after the IDPs. How do you think the nation has done in preparing the IDPs for this moment in time?
From viewpoint of nation, there was a deliberate decision made to ensure for a social integration of the individuals, of our citizens who were forcefully replaced and evicted. And I don't think in that sense that we could have predicted with any degree of reasonableness for how long the occupation will last. It is well known that Azerbaijan's position was always to try to resolve these issues through peaceful negotiations. So therefore the deliberate decision was made to ensure for a full social integration when it comes to education, jobs, housing, healthcare, and you name it. Administrative units of governance were maintained. So although, as an example, city of Aghdam was under occupation, but the executive power of city of Aghdam was functioning. Although people from region of Aghdam were not placed in one specific city. Some of them lived in Baku, some in Ganja, some in Lankaran, some elsewhere. But the schools were also located. There were Aghdam schools. And this was a second element of providing for social integration, but at the same time keeping the community, trying to keep the villages and in a way cities to a certain extent intact and interrelated in an expectation of the day when people will have to go back. And along with physical reconstruction, you also to bring back the social pattern of communities living together and coming back together. And from viewpoint of IDP, I think there was this incredible patience and belief, trust, I think was a basis for this belief and patience. People trusted when they were told by President that we will return there, be it by late Haidar Aliyev, be it by President Ilham Aliyev today. Were we preparing or how well we were preparing? I think the best criteria to look at is the percentage of people who express the readiness and willingness to go back, although it's a hardship. No matter how much government does to rebuild, to reconstruct, to provide for a new and free housing, although it comes at a huge cost. First survey we did in 2021, and we saw that the percentage of people who is willing to return above 90%, and I think that's a very good illustration with respect to where we're preparing for the day. I think everyone was. I think nation was.
When Mr. President made the statement he was going to turn Karabakh into a paradise, did he make your job a lot harder because you're going to have to do better?
I think it will be fair to say that raison d'être of existence of modern Azerbaijani state from the day of re-establishing our independence in 1991 was actually liberation of Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur and restoration of our territorial integrity. And in that sense, no, it's a dream job, yeah? Because if this is something what you have been dreaming about, to go back to Shusha, Aghdam, Fizuli, it doesn't matter, Lachen, Kalbacha. When it comes to a technical level of implementation, it's a burden. It's a burden on the state budget. It's a burden on the resources. We have to allocate, and we do allocate, significant amount of our capital expenditures for restoration of territories. It impacts any other direction of government spendings, be it education, be it healthcare, be it infrastructure development, in any other place, public services. But again, there is a consensus among nations that we have to be consolidated and to provide for a dignity level of living in liberated territories, which will be in line with the standard of living in Azerbaijan, and maybe actually when it comes to the fact that this is an infrastructure which we create today, this is a cities which we rebuild today, these are roads that we build today, maybe even will set a new standard, simply because of the age of technology, modern, let's say, construction that wasn't available 30, 50 years ago.
Sitting in your seat and being told you're going to reconstruct 20% of the nation, did you have any models to work from? Or are we talking the Azeri model here?
No, I think we didn't find any comparable in terms of the scale. And I'm not just talking about the number of square kilometers, but exactly as you said, in comparison to the size of the country, in relation to number of people with respect to the percentage of population being involved, etc. And in that sense, we didn't find any benchmarks or any examples to learn from. It's a complex issue that entails issues from security, I already talked about demining, to social fabric of the villages, to urban planning, to connectivity, to economic activity, because any return can only be sustainable only if it is provided for by the economic activity and by the jobs. Otherwise, it wouldn't be sustainable. People must work and must have jobs and opportunity for entrepreneurship, for self-employment, or for being employed by private or public sector. So in that sense, yes, it's a new challenge.
Again, sitting in your seat, you've just talked about the size of the territory, and you have to rebuild an economy on that scale. Was that daunting?
No, I don't think it's the right emotion to use. It's challenging, it's complex. You need to ensure that the speed of economic activity and speed of return of economic activity coincides, comes parallel, synchronized with the time that it takes to rebuild village, to rebuild roads, to demine the territory. And that is a challenging part of it. We really did a high-level planning for it. It was finalized already by mid-2021, which put together the holistic framework and concepts that we follow. It looks into the economic specialization of the each of the liberated regions. It looks at the composition and know-how and skills, historical skills, but also present skills of returnees. It looks at them and provides for a special legislative regime which ensures tax incentive, loan incentives, many different social security payment support for pensions for those who work on the entire liberated territory. Establishment of the industrial zones where some centralized infrastructure will be brought in, linking the jobs needed mainly for construction and reconstruction of cities and infrastructure with the composition of population who returns. That is pretty complex and pretty sophisticated, and that's why it took, by the decision of the president, the establishment of the coordination council led by the head of presidential administration and composing effectively of all government agencies. And in addition, to ensure also the direct accountability and effectiveness, there was a new governance institute introduced on these territories. Special representatives of the president in each of these regions was assigned, and that also ensured the direct access and efficiency in decision making and coordination.
May I take you one step back? You talked just then about mid-2021. This was ready. Now, in 2019, you had made statements about whitening the economy. You were dealing with the IDPs. Then came COVID. You had a lot on your plate. But had you had the ministry, did you have any any basis of this in place prior to the liberation?
For the liberated territories or for economy of the country in general?
For the liberated territories, did you have a plan in place, even a vague plan at that point?
We have had open and closed researches. Some of them are in public domain. Some of them were not. Attempting to diagnose and provide for a, if not for a blueprint, but at least for a concept of rebuilding and redevelopment of the liberated territories upon their liberation. But as I said, that work was institutionalized in a project with involvement of not only all of the relevant governmental agencies and experts, but also with certain professional international expertise, looking at whether or not there has been a similar challenges. If not, what are the do's and don'ts? What are no regret decisions? Where are strategic bets? So when I say that this was finalized by mid-21, that was a blueprint. And in a way, it is reflected in a number of our policy setting documents, decrees by the president, state programs, ministerial level documents. Issues which you have mentioned, like reducing the role of shadow economy, increasing the transparency, providing for more economic activity. This was and continues to be a political direction of economic reforms by the president. It was very well received and supported also by people. Did it help? Of course it helped, because today we see that in a very short period of time, industrial park in Aghdam becomes a second largest industrial park in an entire country, second to Sumgait, which is the largest in terms of number of residents. Is there also an element of people willing to contribute, entrepreneurs willing to contribute to the liberated territories and to rebuilding? Of course, there is. When I say that it was a raison d'etre for the independent state of Azerbaijan, because it also reflected the idea of unity, because this was not an issue of debate in the society, because this was an issue around which the full consensus was, regardless which political model or economic model or social coexistence model one could prefer. But when it came to this issue, I think it was fully the matter of the national consensus, and that's a way how it also transforms today in a very speedy rebuilding and bringing back economic activity to the territories, although it's challenging to the liberated territories.
When you say it's challenging, what do you mean?
I mean that, just think about it, you open an enterprise which produces goods, but you don't have a local market in this region for these goods, because people who are supposed to live in this city haven't arrived yet, because city hasn't been built yet. It has been destroyed. We have adopted new master plan. We started building it, but it will take 7 years or 10 years for Fizuli to be filled in with all the residents, or for Aghdam, So that's a small example. And imagine that you are a producer of bread or dairy. So you need to take your product, travel to where your market is. You are a producer, you're an industrialist, of course you need people who know technology. You need engineers, you need people with knowledge. What do you do?
We've been lucky enough to interview some of the private sector businessmen who've supported the foundation, Karabakh Fund, and as we've met them, they've told stories that they supported the war effort, that they're investing in Karabakh, and they're investing in the fund, obviously. So what you're saying is these hard-nosed businessmen are willing to take a longer-term view because of their patriotism when it comes to Karabakh.
I think they do, and I think that when it comes to what we see to Karabakh Development Foundation activity or activity of the Minister of Economy, I think what we observe is that they are willing to take a much longer view with respect on return of these investments, or they are ready to take a minimal or neutral return on their investment. Again, this is not sustainable. This is not something on which we want to build our economic model. But it will be unfair and unjust to deny that among these economic investments that have already happened, there are also those which are not based on quote-unquote hardcore economic rationale. And again, it will be very dangerous if there will not be economic rationale, because it will not be sustainable. Because it means that if this enterprise cannot make money, cannot support itself, these 100 jobs or 200 jobs which it has created are temporary. And that's not what we need. That's why we are similarly trying to make sure that it shouldn't be charity. Charity is also part of what Karabakh Development Foundation does, but not when it comes to economic projects.
More hard-nosed is FDI.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've noticed as I've been writing the book and involved here is that especially the first vice president has created Karabakh into a brand. Probably, if nothing had happened and Karabakh had just been part of Azerbaijan, it would be a bit of a sleepy backwater. But now it's front and centre. Plus, the president says it's going to be a paradise. If we're taking a less patriotic, more hard-nosed view when it comes to FDI, how is the international community responding to what you're doing?
In general, Azerbaijan ranks well in terms of its attractiveness for foreign direct investment. I think we need to distinguish between FDIs or investments in general that mainly aim Azerbaijani domestic market from those which take a benefit of the existing either business environment or combination of business environment and geographical location and maybe natural resources and maybe know-how and maybe trade regime which Azerbaijan enjoys with number of countries, etc., and sees export from Azerbaijan of goods produced in Azerbaijan or services for that matter for export markets. So therefore, I think that in case of FDI to Karabakh, we witness both. We have some of the big brand names already present in Azerbaijan of those companies who have been in Azerbaijan before. Cement producers, construction material producers, because there is a lot of construction, there is a lot of economic activity. But we also have interest from power generation, because territories are very rich in solar power. BP implements one, actually the largest for BP renewable solar power project in liberated territories. Not only them, there are Turkish investors doing hydro power project.
The Emiratis are heavily involved, I think, also.
Not on liberated territories yet, but yes, they are largest investor in general in renewable in Azerbaijan. Masdar is, but their main focus not on liberated territories, but we have also foreign investors active in liberated territories in renewable power generation. For natural resources, of course, there is a natural appetite and interest. It is also true that we believe that foreign investors will undo watch behavior of local investors. It will be irrational to expect FDI if your own business doesn't believe. We are content with the level of business interest, and we do a lot of promotion works. I already mentioned that we provide some of the tax breaks and some of the fiscal incentives for those who do business in liberated territories, regardless they are foreign investors, local investors, joint ventures, as compared to rest of the country. So there are also a set of economic incentives.
Azerbaijan is ranked high in many of the international league tables for ease of doing business over a number of years. Is that something that's hard to maintain when I'm talking about Karabakh here, when you're dealing with somewhere new and still developing and still evolving, or are you able to maintain that ease even there?
We try to ensure that it's the same. And we also are very mindful that it's a constant competition. All countries in the world always compete for investments, for domestic investments and for foreign investment. Yes, lately we see elements of fragmentation in the world economy, friend-shoring, near-shoring, many types of changes, I would say, to the way how investors behave. And that's makes us even more mindful of the fact that we have to provide for even better business climate, which consists really of many elements, from ease of access to infrastructure to quality of regulation.
I interviewed Taleh Zyadov,
the head of the port, yeah.
Excuse my pronunciation.
It's okay.
When you have this narrative, I mean, there's quite a narrative there. When you have these narratives, does it make it easier for you? Because you've got a dynamic guy telling a dynamic story, and this port's going in there, and this cross-Caspian trade. You've got a story to tell. Is that helping you?
Absolutely. I mean, in general, I think any economic activity and any country is about teamwork. So you have a leader, in our case, president, who sets the vision, who in a way sets the example, who puts together a team. And then the job of this team is to deliver together, working as a team, not being locked in this circle, but hopefully trying to project it to the business people. At the end of the day, it's not my job which creates GDP or which creates a product or gadget. It's a work of an entrepreneur. Share of private sector in economy of Azerbaijan is well over 80%, 80, yeah? So it's hundreds of thousands of economic actors. We have over 800,000 active taxpayers, right? That's a teamwork.
I've been working on the book. We've been lucky enough to meet a lot of the president's representatives, a lot of senior folks here. And I'm reminded a little bit of the UAE, where in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they've got this young, bright, new, dynamic generation. And it's very much the similar case here. It's a perfect storm in a way. There's some brilliant people out there who are surrounding the president, part of the president's team. It's everything's aligning for Azerbaijan at the moment with these people and with the story and with the dynamic, isn't it?
Well, I think human capital is what defines the place of the country in modern world, and it will continue to be so, even more, with every year passing, so to say. And I think this is a thirst of the fourth industrial revolution and economy, and therefore attention and the importance that we were paying and will continue to pay to the development of human capital, to the attraction of talent, to growing talent, is a must, is a constant. Now, we already benefiting from the fact that being a visionary president back in 2007, state program to enable education of young Azerbaijanis abroad. Now, 17 years after, many of the graduates of this program, graduates of the best universities, some of them have already worked, not only in Azerbaijan, they worked abroad. They gain the experience, they bring back this knowledge. On the other hand, Baku and Azerbaijan is also attracting international and regional talent. Baku is the only capital on Caspian Sea. It offers very attractive lifestyle and infrastructure and again social culture. We are aware of our strengths and weaknesses, and we think that our strength enable us to fight our weaknesses and to be stronger, to get stronger, not in an aggressive way, but in a developing way.
I told the story, Mr. Minister, about that old couple in Lachin.
Yes.
A beautiful story. And on a completely different scale, Azerbaijan is telling that story on a regional level. You're talking beyond peace. You're talking about this peace dividend for the region. Some people may think it's extraordinary. Okay, you're the victor, you could say, in this whole scenario. Some people may think it's extraordinary that you're talking up the region at the same moment you're still trying to sort out Karabakh. But you are, aren't you? You're looking at, there's a dividend to this for Armenia, Georgia, all the South Caucasus.
President Aliyev and Azerbaijan have initiated the peace talks and peace agreements right after the liberation of Azerbaijani territories. There are many reasons for that, but I think in the context of your question, it is also a reflection of the fact that Azerbaijan takes very seriously and in a responsible manner the fact that it is the largest economy in Southern Caucasus, that it's largest in terms of size of its population. And in that sense, our economic contacts are not limited, of course, by the neighbors with whom we have land borders. We similarly actively cooperate and develop relationship with Central Asian nations across the Caspian Sea. As we speak, European Union is the largest trading partner of Azerbaijan, with Italy being number one sort of individual trading partner of Azerbaijan. I think it takes a vision and willingness to cooperate and build bridges rather than walls. I think that's a belief that we have.
How is the ministry integrating sustainable development principles into what you're doing, especially in the terms of COP29?
Sustainable development goals are well reflected in our governmental programs and priorities. Some of them have more relevance in Azerbaijan than in some other jurisdictions. I already mentioned the example of demining. And when it comes to COP29 process, of which Azerbaijan is a host this year, that is again a reflection of vision and commitment and belief of our country to the fact that the impact and footprint of our continuous development, and I don't mean Azerbaijan, but rather us, all countries taken together, all humanity, shall not result in us effectively losing the planet to processes which science proves cannot be reversed if certain steps are not taken in consensus.
You talk about this a lot, Mr. Minister, but do you think Azerbaijan is telling its story well enough in regards to sustainability in COP29? There's a lot of discussion here, but are you selling that story or telling that story outside? Do people know?
My colleague, President-designate of COP29, Minister Mukhtar Babayev, and his team are doing a lot of job raised at, on one hand, bringing awareness, on the other hand, being a responsible host and presidency of the process. Can we do more? Probably, as we already discussed, you always can do more, and you shall aim to do more. But please also do not forget that we had very little time to prepare for COP. Usually, countries know 2 years in advance that they will be hosting COP event. In case of Azerbaijan, this decision was blocked by Armenia for almost a year. Reaching this decision by consensus of all nations has also shown that commitment of Azerbaijan to peace. This was the first, I think it was the first joint decision and joint statement reached by Azerbaijan and Armenia without mediators in the room, showing that countries can work together, and therefore among the initiatives which Azerbaijan puts forward for COP29 process, there is also so-called COP Truce initiative, and it is based on the realization and understanding that COP is also a process, should be a process that supports piece.
Karabakh comes across as a gigantic battery in many ways. It's attracting the BP, as you mentioned. I talked about Mazda, which is more in central Azerbaijan. Is that something that's really leading the charge of the development of Karabakh? Is that something that's going to continue? You've had a headliner, which is the BP development. Is that an ongoing process? You're going to see more and more and more?
Azerbaijan is blessed with rich renewable energy resource potential. We are also very mindful of the fact that along with traditional energy, renewable energy is and shall be one of the backbones of our economy and of our development. We are implementing and spearheading a number of projects. Our ambition is to continue to be reliable energy supplier, and we have projects of green electricity energy exports to Europe. So we're not just happy and ready and investing to provide, along with our partners, to provide for the renewable energy to European markets, to neighboring markets, but we're also enabling and linking to our friends and partners across the Caspian Sea to do that.
Again, as I mentioned, as I met several of the corporate giants who support the Karabakh Revival Fund, one of the things I learned is, although that's a national duty, when it came to their own people, the families of martyrs, etc., that they're at great pains to support those people. Now, when researching you, I think you have 146 employees or families, or the families in the ministry, or families of martyrs, or people who've been injured, etc. You're meeting those guys personally, I understand. You have a rapport with them. Is this something that is a template here? Is everybody doing that? Is the nation taking care of its own?
I believe so, yes. I believe that it's a part of our society. And it's not only reflected in the legislation, in provisions in state aid or exclusions from personal income tax, or many other legislatively approved means, but also I think it is true as a matter of social and corporate culture that people support. I thank you really for always paying attention to that. But I think these last 30 years, if you go back at the beginning, we basically started off with having 1 in 8, maybe 1 in 9 people in this country being IDP or refugee, right? So we had a population of just over 7 million people, and we had 800,000 combined IDPs, refugees, people replaced from Karabakh, Azerbaijanis ethnically cleansed from Armenia. And of course, it created a certain awareness, it created a certain compassion, in addition to, I would say, national values, but it also, you live in this context. And that's why I think it's not an exception, but it's rather a accepted model.
A norm.
Norm, yeah. Thank you.